Thank you, Harris. And she's talking, but did you catch the real bombshell she was throwing? Because it's the same one that today this guy was throwing. We connect. You decide.
Most Americans understand that the deck is stacked for those at the top, and I am running a campaign that is very clearly stating we want to reshuffle that deck. We want to get back to having more opportunities for more people so that they can make more out of their own lives, and I think that's exactly what America's looking for.
At a time when trillions of dollars in wealth have been shifted from the middle class and working families of this country to the top 0.1%, this legislation would impose a speculation fee on Wall Street investment houses and hedge funds.
Here we go, because just in case you had any doubt at all, class warfare is very much alive and well. So get ready. If today is any indication, this could get worse.
We want affirmative tax! We want affirmative tax! We want...
When those in tights have to level with you fast. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto. And when Hillary Clinton says the cards are stacked, is she really saying it is time to stick it to the rich? Ben Stein says that's exactly what she's saying, but she's not being very fair about it. Ben, good to have you. What do you make of this?
Well, I think there's never been a time in history when the poor were made rich by making the rich poor, and I don't think it'll work this time either. I do applaud the idea of having more well-to-do people in this country, but they get well-to-do by work and by education and by working smarter and more efficiently and leading more disciplined lives, not by Hillary Clinton making fun of the rich. And by the way, Hillary Clinton making fun of the rich is absolutely screaming funny. 250,000, 300,000 for a 45-minute speech. Give me a break.
Come on, that's what you make. But I mean...
no, it is not what I make. I wish it were. That's what you make.
You know what's interesting about this is, you know, she's essentially, you know, going to topple herself if she gets her goal to topple the 1%.
Right, she's going to topple herself and all her friends. Look, I live in Beverly Hills. I live part of the time in Malibu. All those rich people in show business, all of them are for Hillary. They're not Republicans. They're all for Hillary. The rich, the really rich left-wingers, and the really rich in this country are generally left-wingers. Not all, but generally. They love Hillary. And by the way, you can tax them a lot. They'll still be fantastically rich, and the poor will still be fantastically poor.
You know, it's interesting when she talked about reshuffling the deck. The first thing I thought of is you're only doing it with half a deck, because only about half the people in this country are paying any federal income tax. I take nothing away from those who are paying payroll tax and what have you, but you're already talking about a slice of that deck that's smaller and getting increasingly smaller. So if your idea of making it right is in her case, and it's in Bernie Sanders' case is in his case, then you're chasing fewer and fewer paying in.
Well, you're chasing in fewer people paying in, and you're chasing a history that does not exist and a future that does not exist. There has never been a case in history where a poor person who's a slovenly, uneducated, lazy, undisciplined drug addict got to be rich because of some wealthy person being taxed. It's fine with me.
Wait. I just want to be clear. Ben Stein is not saying that all poor people are slovenly.
No, not at all. Not at all. Many are fine, incredibly hardworking people, and I love them. And by the way, I work with them when I go to Walmart, and they're great, great people. But there are an awful lot of people who are slobs, drunks, drug addicts. No plan is going to help them. Their own discipline, their own willingness to get an education, that will help them. Taking away from the rich is not going to help them. By the way, it's fine with me if they take away from the rich. I sign my income tax checks with a smile, but I don't think it's going to make the poor rich.
All right. Now, I've talked to a congressman. I'll leave his name out of it for the time being. But he reminded me, after interviewing him some time back, that the top rate used to be 90%. So he was saying
higher than that, 91%. 91%.
Yeah, I thought 90.5, 91, whatever. But the point was, he was saying, Neil, it has a lot higher to go. In other words, I thought, please tell me he isn't saying we're going to go to 90, 91%. But I think that's what he was intimating.
Well, I think it could go much, much, much higher. And by the way, I don't mind that much if it does, but it's not going to make the poor rich, and it's not going to reshuffle the deck. I mean, if you took all that money and gave it to the number of people who are way below the poverty line, they'll be better off for a little while. But unless they can develop better habits of life, they're not going to be better off at all. Any person in this country who works hard, gets a decent education, really is disciplined, can become a middle-class person unless he's physically or mentally disabled. And that is, it doesn't happen by taking away from the rich. It happens by the effort of the individual person in America. Self-discipline, reliance upon self, reliance upon hard work, that's what makes it happen.
So you think that providing free college and making it like just a penny isn't the way to do that?
Well, I think free college for those who are genuinely poor, for those who are genuinely disciplined and hardworking, is a great idea. I think it's a great idea, and I have no problem with it, and I have no problem helping to pay for it. But 4 years of smoking the neon green chronic and being paid for it by a taxi driver or by a worker on a factory floor or by a farmer, no thank you. I think what we need...
Well, look at the time here, Ben. Look at the time. But, Ben, I'm just curious. Your rich Malibu friends in Beverly Hills, do they egg your house, or what do they do?
No, they ignore me. They just cut me dead when I'm walking down the street. But look, college for most of these kids today is just a chance to get high. Or a lot, not most of them, but a lot of them.
Boy.
Why are we going to subsidize it?
You know, I always knew there might be a slight risk booking at the top of the show. Not a big one, just a slight one. Ben Stein, thank you very, very much. Good seeing you. Now take a look at this.
Jerry Clinton.
Thank you all very much.
He regrets deleting 32,000 other emails, Mrs. Clinton.
Well, she's got the wave down, though. You know, after 27 days, Hillary Clinton breaking her silence, talking to the press, albeit ever so slightly. But as you just saw there, it may not be enough. To the Washington Examiner's Byron York, who says, well, it's not nearly enough. But it's getting her by, Byron. It's getting her by. What do you make of that?
Well, so far it is, but if she thinks this is really going to take care of the problem, she's absolutely wrong. Maybe talking for, 4 minutes and 45 seconds once a month to reporters is not going to do it. Clearly, the thing that's really important about this Hillary Clinton hiding from the press issue, it's not that the press has some sort of special rights in all this. It is that she's not even talking to voters. If you look at these events she's having, the same thing she did today in Iowa, she'll have an event, she'll discuss something, it'll be carefully scripted, she'll be talking with carefully chosen and screened supporters, and it'll all be very, very nice. She's not having any of these unscripted, unplanned encounters with voters that are part of the campaign, that usually, by the way, happen in the view of the press. And so she cannot, I think, continue to run this sort of airtight seal of a campaign.
But, you know, Byron, I respect the heck out of you. Far smarter than I in this subject. But here's what I think. I think she can do this as long as she can because it's working for her. The poll numbers show that she still does good in these one-on-one races, and I know we still have many months to go, over a year to go. And I think she will continue doing this because the media will not be that exacting or that critical of her, maybe until we get into the general election if she were to become the Democratic nominee. So I think she's figuring I have nothing to lose continuing this strategy because it's working quite fine.
Well, that is in part. If it's true, it's because she has no real Democratic competition. If this were a vigorous, hotly contested race inside the Democratic Party, you can bet she would be out there.
Probably right, but then that's why Republicans are talking to the press, and some of them are fumbling and so she figures she doesn't have to do that. For now, she can remain above the fray. I agree with you. I think a candidate, the more often they talk to the press or talk to us, period, the better. But I can understand a strategy, at least for her campaign, that appears to be working just fine.
Well, you know, look at what happened to Jeb Bush last week. He just messed up on this Iraq question time after time. But by the way, he kept going out to events, unscripted, unscreened, talking to reporters, answering their questions, and talking to voters. Remember, in Arizona, Nevada, there was a young Democrat who walked up to him, and she gave him this whole line about how her brother created ISIS. And he listened and responded. Can you imagine Hillary Clinton doing that right now? I think Hillary Clinton looks at what happened to Jeb Bush this week and says, my strategy's pretty good.
Yeah, until the moment comes when maybe it has to change. But it hasn't yet. Byron, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Meanwhile, imagine risking your life to secure Ramadi and then seeing ISIS raising its flags over Ramadi. My next guest doesn't have to imagine it. He's living it, and he's not liking it.